First things first, I have marked about 10 large steps away from the camera. So this is a really short circuit. And what I'm doing here is I'm just walking, I think about 10 steps, and I'm curling my foot off the ground. Then I'm doing it backwards. So all I'm doing here is working at mobilizing through my foot and mobilizing my ankle. Just making sure I hit the spot I've marked on the path. And I'm doing it again. This time I'm bringing my knees a little bit higher. I'm just being conscious that I'm warming up my hip flexors. So that's that muscle in the front of my hip that runs through my center line into the back of my lower ribs. And I'm just walking backwards. So each time I walk backwards, I'm just thinking about rolling my foot and the entire sole of my foot backwards on the ground. And I'm just mobilizing through the ankle. So this time in my forward move, I'm adding in a skip. So knee is coming to hip height. We're going to do this again, so don't worry if you've gotten it wrong. On the way backwards, rolling through the foot. So this time, as we step forward, we're bringing the knee to hip height and we're skipping on the leg that's standing. Opposite arm to opposite knee and turning around and jogging back. So we're adding in a little bit of a jog here. And it's just 10 steps, it's not long. Okay, so again, we're adding in a skip. Opposite hand to opposite knee. Keep the elbows by the sides. Keep the arms in line with the sides. And we're turning around and jogging back. It's just 10 steps. You don't have to race back. Nice, easy jog of a few paces. Again, knees are high. So what we're doing here is we're warming up those hip flexors and we're gently just adding in some impact. So it doesn't have to be a 30-minute run. You can just add in some impact nice and slowly. So here we're going to mobilize the hips. We're stepping out and that back leg that's following is coming to the front and coming to the back, alternating front, back, front, back. Again, really simple. And if you don't get this right, it doesn't matter. The focus here is on warming up the hips in a different plane of motion. I'm calling the dogs. I actually nearly fell over there, genuinely. I'll tell you how much balance I've lost. So if you start to get out of breath or you find that, this is hard work, just take a couple of reps of a walk, which is exactly what I've done here. I started to get really warm, so I took off my jumper. You can use this opportunity to get your breath back if you feel that you've been working a little bit hard there, if you're really starting from scratch and your fitness, like mine at the moment, isn't the very best. So here we're going to start with some high heels. So we're kicking our heels back behind us. So again, I'm conscious of where I'm landing on my foot. I'm thinking of landing on the midfoot, so just behind the ball of the foot. I'm walking directly behind the camera. The dogs are going to get in the way for the entire rest of the duration of this video, so just to warn you in advance. And you can do that exercise walking or jogging. It's completely up to you. And I'm jogging back. So just thinking about kicking back behind me and thinking about how I'm landing. So I'm walking down, kicking back, trying to mobilize the knees here a little bit, mobilize the hips, but keep things moving nice and gently. So I'm not really landing with a big bang here. I'm landing very consciously and I'm jogging. And as I jog, I'm just thinking about how I'm landing and thinking about the movement of my heels towards my bum. Okay, so here we are mobilizing the knee outwards. So that opening of the hip, if you remember when we did our first exercise, it was a lift and a skip. And here we're lifting and skipping and rotating outwards. And then I'm jogging back. Really simple. Let's repeat that. So lifting, rotating outwards. So again, this is going to challenge my balance. It's going to challenge my core strength. It's going to challenge my hip mobility. And again, if you don't get this right, it doesn't matter. The dogs are loving this. They've been out with me for half an hour at this stage. Okay, so opposite direction. This time we're going from the outside in. Now listen, I've been doing this for a while. You might find when you're doing this, your coordination is all over the place. You might find you're falling all over the place. If that's the case, wonderful. Keep doing this exercise because this is designed to help you build up that balance. Like, think of it. If you're going to start running and you have to avoid stones or you have to avoid a footpath, it's kind of important that you practice being out of balance during your running. And what better way to do it than during a session like this, where you can take regular rests. So again, I'm just letting my heart rate come back down to normal. So getting a little bit of a walk in between. And if you're listening to this as you're doing a session, if you have your headphones in and your phone in your pocket and you're saying, I haven't got a notion what this one is doing, I am just kind of trying to imagine it and follow along, then that's fine too. The fact is you're out there doing something. Just so you're aware, I'm still walking, but I'm just rolling my foot off the floor. Again, being conscious of how my foot is falling on the ground. Okay, so we're going to stop and do a bit of balance. So I'm standing on one foot, bringing the opposite knee up to hip height. So I've swapped legs, standing on the opposite foot, the opposite knee up to hip height. And again, look, you can see that my balance isn't exactly perfect. And if you feel challenged, which I will here because the dogs just continuously want more and more love, then great. If you have something challenging your balance, like a small child or a dog or a cat or whatever it might be, well and good. So here I'm swapping from side to side. Again, now we've got a balance exercise and we're adding in the challenge of a little bit of impact. And this dog, I swear, he can't let me do anything without him being involved. So I'm swapping from side to side. And when you swap over, when you hop to the opposite leg, make sure to give yourself an opportunity to just balance for a second before you change back. So here now I'm speeding up the hop from side to side. And again, all we're looking for here is a slightly dynamic hop, managing balance, managing a little bit more impact. And I want you to focus on landing as lightly as possible here. Okay, so we're going to go into some running reps now. So look, I have basically set myself up here so that I'm running for like less than 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Yeah, right. So, and each time I've done this, what I've done is I've just ran for a second longer and then walked back. So I run for 5 seconds, then I run for 6 seconds, then for 7, then for 8, and so on. So I'm jogging forward and walking back. And each time I do this, I'm adding just 1 second on. And again, if at any point you need to add in an extra walking lap, let's call it, or an extra walking length, then do that. That's what I've done here. Jogging again for 6 seconds. And when I turn, I'm walking. Now, all I'm doing here is continuing these repeats. So I'm walking away from the camera, jogging towards the camera. And the idea of doing the reps or the drills is that even though this is a very, very short session, that if I keep those drills up, eventually that's the way my body's going to move. So the ideal scenario here is that you do the drills first and then you do the short series of intervals afterwards, and you could even maybe do one drill and do 3 intervals, and then do another drill and do 3 intervals, and then go back to your first drill and do 3 intervals. So whatever way you like to set yourself up for this, take as much rest as you need in between your drills, but keep moving if you can. Rather than stopping, try and stay warm and keep walking. Certainly, the more you're walking, of course, the more miles, or the more steps you're getting in. And the point of this being that the more steps you get in, the fitter you become. So the closer then you're going to get to actually running without stopping. It's all about time in your legs. So during this session, even though the active part of the session is only about 13 minutes, I was walking for about 15 minutes beforehand to get to this spot, and then I walked for 15 minutes to get home. So overall, I think I was out for about 43 or 44 minutes. That's a nice little session. So that's 43 or 44 minutes of time in my legs. So again, as I'm talking here, I'm walking for 10 seconds, jogging for 10 seconds. And as you can see here, I'm just conscious of how my foot's landing. I'm rolling my foot off the ground, a little bit of a kick up at the back or a pull up at the front. And here, that's just activation of my hamstrings or of my hip flexors. Hamstrings being at the back of the tops of the thighs and hip flexors being inside the front of the hip. So again, I'm repeating a walk here and just cooling myself down a small bit. We're going to do a little bit of a stretch here now. So the active part of my session is finished. I'm reaching upwards and getting a little bit of a hamstring pull here. So fingers on the ground. This is not a downward dog. It's just a little bit of a hamstring stretch. And I'm just walking one leg at a time. So now we're going to do a hip flexor stretch, one foot in front of the other. This is fondly known as the runner's stretch, says you. Of course it is. So I'm raising the arm of the back leg and just rotating my body away so that I can stretch through the front of the hip. You should feel that down along your abdominals or in the front of the hip. And then we're going to swap sides. So the opposite leg goes forward, reaching that arm upwards and rotating again. So you can stay here doing this for as long as you want, for as long as feels good. And remember, stretching should never hurt, okay? It should be nice and easy. So legs together, and I'm just going to do a bit of a side bend on either side. This feels good, it feels nice to me. A little bit of a rotation. Try and keep the hips facing forward as much as possible so you wring out that spine. And that's it. I'm all done.